Caleb McRae was known across the desert as the man who spoke only when he had to. People called him Silent Cal. And he never argued with the name. He liked the sound of the wind more than the sound of voices. And he preferred long, quiet rides to long conversations. After months of traveling from ranch to ranch, Cal had grown thin from the journey and dusty from the road. All he wanted on this warm afternoon was a place to rest, buy a few supplies, and fill his canteen before moving on toward the distant mountains. The sun was dipping low when he reached a small trading post built from wood that looked older than the man who owned it. The desert around the shop stretched wide and empty, but the trading post itself was lively. Horses tied to rails shifted their weight, wagons rattled as families arranged goods, and travelers stood in small groups sharing news and stories. Cal walked his tired horse to the rail, tied the rope, and patted the animal's neck. The horse nudged his shoulder gently, sensing both Cal's weariness and his steady calm. Cal stepped onto the porch of the trading post. The boards creaked beneath his boots as he pushed open the door. Inside, the room smelled of dried herbs, leather, and warm wood. Shelves were stacked with flour, beans, blankets, and lantern oil. A few customers stood around, speaking in soft conversation. Normally, Cal would have enjoyed the peaceful quiet of a place like this. But today, something felt different. There was a tension in the air that made Cal pause. In the far corner of the room, several men stood in a circle. Their voices were louder than everyone else's, and their tone carried confusion and uncertainty. People nearby glanced at them with worried eyes but stepped aside, not wanting to get involved. Cal noticed that in the center of the group stood a woman, calm, graceful, and strangely composed, despite the noise around her. Her dark hair was braided neatly, and she wore a simple dress that looked travel-worn but cared for. Her posture was straight, and her eyes were focused and steady, as though she understood far more than she revealed. Cal could see something serene in her face, something that did not match the restless energy of the men around her. One of the men spoke loudly, trying to make sense of how she had arrived at the trading post. Another insisted she had been separated from her group earlier in the week. A few of them argued about who should speak for her, or what should happen next. Though none of their words were harsh, the confusion created a wave of discomfort that rolled through the room. Cal stood near a barrel filled with blankets and watched the scene without moving. He did not want trouble, he never did. But he felt drawn to the woman's calm strength. She looked out of place among the loud chatter, like a still pond surrounded by restless wind. The shopkeeper attempted to quiet the group, raising his hands gently, but the voices continued. Some people believed the woman needed help finding her way home. Others thought she had come seeking someone at the post. A few simply stared, unsure of what to do. Through it all, the woman remained completely still. Her eyes drifted quietly across the room, studying the shelves, the door, the windows, and the people, as though she were gathering silent details about everything around her. Cal noticed something strange. She did not seem afraid. Most people lost in unfamiliar company showed at least a hint of worry or stress, but this woman carried herself with certainty, as if she knew exactly who she was and where she belonged, even if no one else understood it. Cal stepped a little closer to the group, though he stayed on the edge. He had no intention of joining the discussion. But the loudest of the men suddenly turned and pointed at Cal with a half-smile. "Well, look there," the man said. "Silent Cal himself. He's the calm kind. Maybe he should decide." Cal felt every eye turn toward him. He didn't like being the center of attention, but he stood still and waited for the chatter to die down. "Decide what?" he finally asked, speaking quietly. The man shrugged as if the question were simple. "She needs someone to look after her until things get sorted out. We can't all stand here arguing about it. You're traveling light. You're fair-minded. Why not take responsibility until we know what she needs?" Cal frowned slightly. He didn't want responsibility for anyone. He was used to caring only for himself and his horse. But the woman's eyes met his calm, thoughtful, and steady. She did not seem troubled by the idea, nor did she seem to expect anything from him. Her look held something else, trust, or perhaps acknowledgement. Cal shook his head gently. "I'm not looking to cause confusion," he said. "I'm only here for supplies." The group murmured among themselves. One of them laughed lightly and said something that made several others chuckle. "You worry too much, Cal. No one's forcing anything. Folks just want peace of mind knowing she's with someone who won't cause harm." Cal scratched his jaw, unsure what to say. He didn't want to involve himself, yet he didn't like the growing tone of impatience in the room. The woman still watched him, her expression unreadable. The shopkeeper stepped forward with a kind smile. "Perhaps she simply needs a safe guide until she can return home. You travel the land often, and you do it with respect. I believe you'd handle the situation well." Cal looked at the woman again, noticing the way she stood balanced and aware. She nodded slightly, almost as if answering a question he had not spoken aloud. He sighed. "If it helps keep peace," he said softly. "I can see her safely along the trail." Relief washed across a few faces. Someone clapped another on the back. One man, who had been trying to lighten the argument earlier, jingled a few coins in his hand and grinned. "Well, if Cal's taking her, I suppose $3 for supplies will settle the fuss. That should make everyone feel even." Cal wasn't sure what the man meant by settle, but $3 would pay for little more than food and water. And if it ended the debate, that seemed fair. Without much thought, he reached into his pocket and set $3 silver on the counter. The coins clinked softly on the wood. The woman stepped toward Cal with quiet confidence, and the room slowly returned to its normal rhythm. People went back to their business, though several glanced at the woman with curiosity or admiration. The shopkeeper gave Cal a small nod of approval. Cal lifted his supplies into his saddlebag while the woman waited beside his horse. She stood in the warm glow of the afternoon sun, her calm presence almost soothing. "Do you speak English?" Cal asked gently, as he tightened the straps on his saddle. The woman looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once, slowly. Cal appreciated the simple reply. He did not need many words, and she did not seem to offer many. They shared a moment of quiet understanding, two people who preferred silence over noise. As he prepared to mount, Cal couldn't help but wonder about her. She carried herself with a grace he rarely saw on the trail. Everything about her felt purposeful, yet she had appeared in the trading post as though dropped into the center of confusion. He did not know her story. He did not know why she had been traveling alone. He did not even know her name. But as she stood there beside him, calm and patient, Cal felt a shift in his journey. He thought he had come only for supplies. Instead, he found himself responsible for someone whose presence seemed to hum with quiet mystery. He placed his foot in the stirrup, swung onto his horse, and looked down at her. She stepped forward with the same steady grace and climbed lightly onto the back of the horse behind him, settling into place without needing guidance. Cal felt the change immediately. His long, quiet ride was no longer his alone. The desert wind blew softly across the land, carrying with it a sense that something unexpected was beginning a story that would stretch far beyond the dusty porch of that small trading post. And though Cal did not yet know who she was, he knew one thing: the path ahead would not be ordinary. Cal rode slowly along the quiet trail, with the woman seated behind him. The warm desert wind brushed past his hat, carrying the soft smell of sage and the distant hint of rain. He wasn't used to having anyone ride with him, and he could feel the gentle shift of balance as she moved with the horse. She didn't grip him tightly or speak. She simply sat with calm steadiness, as if she had always belonged on the open road. For several minutes, neither of them said a word. Cal preferred silence. But this silence felt different. It wasn't lonely. It was curious, like standing before a door you hadn't realized existed, waiting for it to open. He glanced back slightly, not enough to make her uncomfortable, just enough to see that she was watching the landscape with careful eyes. It seemed nothing escaped her. Noticed the hills, the clouds, the path beneath them. After a while, Cal cleared his throat quietly. "I should know your name," he said, keeping his voice low and gentle. "If we're traveling together, even for a short time." The woman waited a moment, then spoke her first full sentence since leaving the trading post. "My name is Nalina." Her voice was soft, but it carried a strength that surprised him. Each word was placed with purpose. Cal nodded. "Nalina. That's a fine name." She didn't answer, but he noticed a peaceful ease settle around her, as if speaking her name out loud had set something right in the world. Cal continued riding, letting the rhythm of the horse carry them forward. The desert shifted into rolling hills, sprinkled with shrubs and wildflowers. The sky above them stretched endlessly, a wide blue canvas with drifting clouds. Cal guided the horse toward a small creek he knew well. It was a good place to stop for water, both for the horse and for themselves. When they reached the creek, Cal slid down from the saddle. Nalina followed with the same graceful ease she had shown all along. Cal untied the canteen and dipped it into the cool water. Nalina knelt nearby, touching the surface of the creek gently with her fingers, as if greeting an old friend. "You travel alone often?" she asked suddenly, surprising Cal. "Most of the time," he replied. "I don't seek company. Company usually brings trouble." "Does my being here trouble you?" she asked. Not accusingly, but with honest curiosity. Cal shook his head. "I don't mind your presence. You're quiet. You notice things. That's rare." Nalina gave a small, polite smile. "Quiet is not the same as lost," she said. "And noticing things, that is simply living." Cal didn't know exactly what she meant, but he felt those words settle into him like seeds waiting for rain. He filled the canteen, helped the horse drink, and offered some of their supplies to Nalina. She accepted only a little, making sure not to take more than she needed. As they rested, Cal thought about the scene at the trading post. He remembered the men talking fast, unsure of what to do. He remembered the confusion on their faces and the calm on hers, and he remembered placing the $3 silver on the counter. He hadn't meant it as an exchange, he only wanted to calm the crowd. But the gesture felt strange now. He didn't like the idea of anyone believing he had claimed her. That was not his way, and it wasn't something he wanted hanging over them. He sat on a smooth rock beside the creek. "Nalina," he said quietly, "about earlier those coins. I only meant to settle their argument. I didn't mean anything else by it." Her eyes lifted to his, clear and thoughtful. "I know," she said. "Coins do not carry people. Intentions do." Cal let out a slow breath. He didn't always understand her words, but he trusted them. She seemed to see through situations with a rare kind of clarity. Still, he felt a lingering worry. He didn't want her to feel trapped or obligated. "You're free to walk any time you want," he added gently. "You're not bound to me in any way." Nalina stood slowly, brushing dust from her dress. She stepped to the edge of the creek and looked upstream, toward the distant hills. "You offer freedom because you believe I do not already have it," she said. "But freedom is something I carry always. I walk with you now because it is the right step for this moment." Cal blinked, surprised by the calm certainty of her words. She wasn't a lost traveler who needed rescue. She wasn't confused or afraid. She was choosing to be here. He nodded, respecting her decision. "Then we'll travel a bit farther together," he said softly. They continued down the trail. The sun grew warm overhead, and shadows stretched long across the ground. As the afternoon passed, Nalina showed small hints of knowledge that impressed Cal. She pointed out a safe place for the horse to climb a rocky slope, spotted a patch of edible berries long before Cal noticed them, and sensed the direction of a fresh water source without seeing it first. "You know these lands," Cal said with quiet respect. Nalina nodded. "The land speaks to anyone who listens." Cal wanted to ask more, but before he could, the sound of distant footsteps on gravel reached them. He turned his head to see two travelers approaching, simple folks carrying bundles of supplies. They raised a hand in greeting as they passed, offering friendly smiles. Cal nodded back. Nalina returned the gesture politely. Once the travelers were out of sight, Cal relaxed again. The moment had been harmless, but something subtle shifted in Nalina's expression. She seemed alert, though not worried. She watched the trail behind them for a few seconds before turning forward once more. "You sensed something?" he asked. Nalina shook her head softly. Not danger. Just movement. Sometimes movement means change. Cal accepted that. She spoke in a way that blended observation and intuition, and he had learned quickly to trust both. As evening approached, they came upon a quiet clearing surrounded by soft grass and tall trees. The sky had turned golden, and birds were settling in for the night. Cal chose the spot for camp. He gathered wood for a small fire, nothing too bright, just enough for warmth and comfort. Nalina assisted without being asked. She arranged stones for the fire, laid out blankets, and checked the area with careful attention, as if her senses extended farther than her eyes. When Cal lit the small flame, the light danced gently across her face. He wanted to ask more about her past, where she was from, what led her to the trading post, but he didn't want to push. If Nalina wished to share her story, she would do so at her own pace. Instead, she was the one who spoke first. "You wonder who I am," she said calmly. "You wonder why I was at the trading post." Cal nodded quietly. He wasn't proud to be so transparent, but she saw things clearly. "I was separated from my people," she said slowly. "Not lost. Not taken. Just separated. The land took me one way, and my path will return me where I belong when the time is right." Cal didn't fully understand, but he respected her openness. "And until then?" he asked. She looked into the fire, her expression gentle. "Until then, I walk the path that appears before me. Today, that path is beside you." Her words settled warmly in Cal's chest. He wasn't used to companionship, but something about her presence felt steady, almost comforting. She brought meaning to silence, depth to simple moments, and awareness to every step of the trail. The fire crackled softly. Stars blinked awake in the sky above them. The night grew cool, and the quiet between them felt peaceful. Cal leaned back against a smooth log and watched the flames. Nalina sat across from him, her posture relaxed, yet alert. She seemed completely at ease in the wilderness, as if the night itself recognized her. Cal had thought helping her would be a small detour, a moment of kindness before returning to his solitary ride. But now he sensed that her presence carried a deeper story, one he could not yet see. He didn't know that the next steps of their journey would reveal more about her than he ever expected. He didn't know that his simple choice at the trading post was leading him toward something far greater than a quiet ride through the desert. All he knew was that Nalina was not ordinary, and the path ahead was beginning to shift in ways he could not yet understand. The next morning arrived softly, with a cool breeze brushing through the trees. Cal woke before sunrise, as he always did. The sky was still painted with shades of purple and silver when he checked on the horse and the camp. Nalina was awake too, sitting quietly near the glowing embers of the small fire they had kept through the night. She sat so still that she almost blended into the morning shadows. For a moment, Cal wondered if she had slept at all. When she noticed him watching, Nalina lifted her eyes and gave a calm nod. "The day begins," she said simply. Cal returned the nod. He wasn't sure how she always seemed aware of everything. The light, the air, even his presence, yet never appeared startled or uneasy. She moved through the world with the kind of quiet confidence he rarely saw in anyone. They prepared for the day together. Cal packed the blankets while Nalina carefully brushed the horse's mane with smooth, gentle strokes. The animal relaxed under her touch, as if it trusted her instantly. Cal noticed this and felt a small sense of admiration. Trust from a horse was earned, never given easily. They set out along the narrow trail, the early light spreading warm color across the hills. Nalina rode behind Cal again, balanced and steady. The morning felt peaceful, but Cal sensed something different in the air, something subtle he could not explain. Perhaps it was the way Nalina scanned the landscape with careful eyes, or the way she sometimes tilted her head as if listening to something far away. After an hour of quiet riding, Nalina spoke. "The land is very open here," she said softly. "Even the sky feels larger." Cal agreed. "It's wide country. Easy to feel small when everything around you stretches far beyond sight. But small does not mean weak," Nalina replied gently. Sometimes small simply means centered, Cal smiled faintly. Her words always carried layers of meaning. And though he didn't always understand them fully, he appreciated the calm wisdom behind them. As the sun rose higher, they reached a fork in the trail. One path led toward the canyon, where water and shade could be found. The other curved around the hills. Before Cal could decide, Nalina pointed lightly toward the canyon path. That way, she said. Cal raised an eyebrow. Any reason? She nodded. The ground speaks of recent footsteps. The canyon has been used, and traveled paths are often safer. Cal trusted her judgment. He turned the horse toward the canyon, letting her guide their pace. She seemed to notice details he missed, light impressions in the dirt, patterns in the wind, even the way birds flew overhead. Everything meant something to her. Everything told a story. They rode through the canyon's entrance, where tall rock walls offered shade from the sun. A small stream ran along the side, reflecting bits of sky like scattered pieces of glass. The sound of water was gentle and comforting. Cal brought the horse to a slow stop. We can rest here for a while, he said. Nalina slid down first, landing softly on the ground. She touched the canyon wall with one hand, as if greeting an old friend. Cal dismounted too, and led the horse to drink from the stream. As they rested, Nalina wandered a few steps away, studying the ground and the shapes of the stones. Cal watched her with growing curiosity. She didn't behave like someone uncertain or lost. She moved with purpose and awareness, like someone who knew exactly what she was searching for. You see things I don't, he said as she returned. You see things too, she replied. You just see them differently, Cal chuckled lightly. Maybe, but you seem to read the land like a book. It has been my teacher since childhood, she said. Every hill, every stream, every wind pattern tells something. If you listen, you hear the world speak. Cal considered this quietly. He had always respected nature, but he had mostly traveled through it, not with it. Nalina's connection seemed far deeper, almost spiritual. They continued riding once the horse had rested. The canyon opened into a broad valley filled with soft grass and bright wildflowers. The air smelled fresh and sweet, and sunlight shimmered across the field. As they rode, Nalina's calm voice broke the quiet again. Cal, she said, you are different from the others. Cal blinked in surprise. How so? You do not demand. You do not rush. You do not fear silence. These qualities are rare. He shifted slightly in the saddle, unsure how to respond. Compliments weren't something he received often. I just try to live simply, he said. Life gets easier when you speak only what matters. Nalina nodded slowly. Yes. Words should carry intention. The same way footsteps carry direction. Cal thought about her sentence for a long moment. Traveling with her was like walking beside a calm river. Her presence was soothing. But it also made him reflect on himself. The day grew warmer, and as noon approached, they stopped near a cluster of trees to rest in the shade. Cal pulled out dried fruit and bread from his saddlebag. Nalina accepted the food with gratitude but ate only a small amount, as though she needed little to feel full. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves above them. The quiet moment stretched comfortably, until Cal noticed Nalina looking at the horizon with focused eyes. What do you see? He asked. Movement, she murmured. Not near, but close enough to notice. Cal looked too, but saw nothing unusual. The valley was open and peaceful. Birds hopped among the grasses, and the stream nearby flowed without interruption. You're sure? He asked. She nodded calmly. Yes, but it is not something to fear. It is simply something to be aware of. Cal trusted her instinct. He had learned quickly that she sensed things long before they were visible. Her awareness was like a second kind of sight. They returned to the trail and continued deeper into the valley. Before long, they came upon a group of friendly travelers resting by a fallen log. The travelers waved warmly when they saw Cal and Nalina approach. Beautiful day for riding, one of them said cheerfully. It is, Cal replied with a nod. The travelers offered them fresh water and shared simple stories about the road. Nalina listened quietly, but smiled politely when they spoke to her. She didn't reveal much about herself, but she carried a polite warmth that made others comfortable. When the travelers departed, Cal and Nalina continued on. The valley slowly shifted into gently rising hills. The path became narrower, winding between clusters of tall grass and small shrubs. The air smelled of sweet earth and pine as they moved upward. Nalina suddenly lifted her hand. "Stop," she said softly. Cal halted the horse. "What is it?" She stepped down carefully, studying the ground. Her fingers brushed over a set of faint impressions in the dirt. Soft, shallow, but present. "These footsteps are familiar," she said quietly. "Not the same as before. These belong to people who travel with care." Cal leaned forward slightly. "Friends of yours?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she closed her eyes and took a slow breath. When she opened them again, her expression held gentle certainty. "People I know," she said. "People who walk with purpose." Cal didn't ask more. He sensed she would explain when the time was right. They continued riding until the sun grew low and the sky began to turn gold. The landscape around them glowed warmly, and shadows stretched long across the trail. Cal felt the world grow softer, almost expectant. Nalina sat very still behind him. Her breath was steady, but her silence carried meaning. It felt like she was waiting for something important. Cal finally asked, "Nalina, are we getting close to where you need to go?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "Yes, the path is leading me back toward my people." Cal absorbed the words slowly. He knew she would leave eventually, but hearing it still sent an unexpected ache through him. He had grown used to her presence, the calm, the wisdom, the gentle guidance. Traveling alone again suddenly felt heavier than before, but Nalina placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Do not carry sadness," she said softly. "Paths meet for reasons, and sometimes they meet again." Her words soothed him. He nodded once, accepting her calm truth. As twilight settled across the land, the air grew cooler, and the first stars began to shine. Cal felt a quiet shift in the world around them, as if something unseen had begun to stir. He didn't know that tomorrow would bring answers he never expected. He didn't know that Nalina's identity held a depth far greater than he imagined. All he sensed was that the path ahead was changing, and he was changing with it. The morning of the next day arrived gently, with soft golden light spilling over the hills and brushing the tops of the tall grasses. Cal woke to the sound of birds greeting the sunrise, their songs drifting through the cool air. Nalina was already awake, sitting quietly near the small fire they had kept through the night. The glow of the early sun touched her face, giving her an almost peaceful brightness. Cal stretched his arms and stood, brushing dust from his clothes. "You sleep at all?" he asked lightly. Nalina looked over at him with calm eyes. "Rest comes in many shapes," she said. "I find it in the quiet, even when I am awake." Cal smiled softly. He had learned not to question her ways. She carried a steady peace inside her that didn't need long hours of sleep to stay balanced. Sometimes being around her made Cal feel as though the world moved a little slower, a little gentler. After they packed their things and saddled the horse, Nalina paused before mounting. She looked out across the valley with a thoughtful, almost sensitive expression. "We are close now," she said quietly. Cal stopped tightening the saddle straps and turned to her. "Close to what?" She hesitated for a moment. "To the people I know," she said. "To something important." Cal nodded, though he didn't fully understand. He had sensed all along that Nalina carried a deeper story, something hidden under her calm presence. Maybe today he would learn more. They set off. The morning breeze carried the sweet smell of blooming flowers, and the ground beneath them felt firmer as they rode toward the rising hills. The land grew taller and more shaped, with scattered trees standing like quiet guardians. Birds circled lazily above them, and the sky widened into a soft blue stretch. Nalina rode behind Cal in her usual still and balanced way. But today, she seemed more alert. She scanned the horizon with careful eyes, noticing every shift of the wind, every rustle of leaves, every shadow passing across the hills. Cal sensed the change. "You're expecting something," he said. Nalina nodded lightly. "The land is reminding me of home." Cal didn't ask more. He respected her silence, letting her share only what she wished. They continued forward, the trail winding gently between patches of wild grass. Before long, Cal noticed something unusual. The air had shifted not in a threatening way, but in a way that felt watchful. It was as if the valley around them was holding its breath. Nalina's posture straightened slightly. "We are being observed," she whispered softly. Cal slowed the horse. "By who?" She didn't answer immediately. She looked out over the hilltop with eyes that seemed to see beyond distance. "People who know me," she finally said. Cal felt no fear. He trusted her instinct. She wasn't alarmed, only attentive. If she wasn't worried, he wouldn't be either. They continued at a steady pace. The trail curved around a large boulder, and as they emerged on the other side, Cal felt a quiet presence in the air. Something calm, patient, and deliberate. He brought the horse to a stop. The space around them was silent, except for the soft whisper of wind moving through the grass. Cal's breath felt slow and measured as he waited, sensing that something important was about to reveal itself. And then he saw them. At first, they seemed like shapes blending into the landscape, figures, half hidden by distance and shadow. They stood among the rocks and trees with stillness that came from deep training and respect for the land. Slowly, they stepped forward, appearing almost as if they had grown out of the earth itself. Men and women stood with quiet confidence, wearing clothing woven with patterns that spoke of tradition and care. They carried themselves with a calm dignity that made the entire moment feel sacred rather than tense. Cal immediately understood these were Nalina's people, though he didn't yet know how significant they were to her. Nalina slid down from the horse with gentle ease. Her eyes softened, and her face carried a look Cal had not seen before, a look of homecoming. 3 more figures stepped forward from behind the group. They approached with deliberate grace, heads held high, eyes steady. And then another stepped out taller than the rest, with an undeniable presence. The moment he appeared, the others moved slightly aside, making space for him. Cal somehow knew instantly that this man held great authority among them. His posture was strong, his expression calm but deep with responsibility. His eyes, dark and wise, carried warmth rather than judgment. Nalina walked toward him, not rushing, not hesitating. When she reached him, she placed a hand over her heart in a respectful gesture. The man returned the gesture with quiet emotion. Their eyes met with a connection that spoke of history, of shared experiences, of meaning beyond simple words. Cal watched, unsure what role he now played in this moment. He felt almost like a visitor standing at the edge of someone else's story. Nalina turned to him and spoke gently. "Cal," she said, "this is Atsa." Atsa stepped forward slightly. His voice, when he spoke, was calm and respectful. "You are the one who traveled with Nalina." Cal nodded modestly. "I only offered company on the trail. She chose the path." Atsa studied him with eyes that seemed to read more than Cal said. "You carried a careful heart along the way," Atsa said. "That is clear." Quote, the other members of the group continued to watch silently, their presence neither threatening nor overwhelming, simply attentive. Cal understood he was among people who valued stillness and thoughtful action. Nalina stepped closer to Atsa and spoke softly in a language Cal didn't know. Her voice carried calm assurance. Atsa listened carefully, his expression shifting with understanding. Though Cal couldn't interpret the words, he could sense she was explaining their journey, how Cal had treated her kindly, respected her choices, and never asked more from her than she wished to share. Atsa nodded slowly as she spoke. When she finished, he turned back to Cal. "Nalina is important to us," he said with gentle clarity. "Her presence is something we cherish. We were seeking her, and it brings comfort to know she walked beside someone who honored her quiet strength." Cal felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He hadn't realized until now how deeply he worried about how this moment might unfold. He didn't want to bring trouble. He didn't want misunderstandings. Nalina had always been more than what the trading post crowd assumed. and now he stood among those who truly knew her value. Atsa gave a slight bow of respect. Your steps were careful. That is a gift. Atsa. Cal returned the gesture, though more awkwardly. I only tried to do what was right, he said honestly. Nalina stepped closer to Cal. Her voice was soft, but steady. Your path crossed mine at the right moment, she said. And today? Our steps return me home. Cal absorbed her words slowly. He felt a small ache, though he tried not to show it. He had known she would not travel with him forever. Yet part of him had grown used to her presence. The calm she brought. The conversations that felt simple yet meaningful. She continued. You helped me walk safely. You did so without question. For that, I am grateful. Cal cleared his throat lightly. It was easy to travel with you, he said. You brought quiet with you. Good quiet. A small, warm smile touched Nalina's lips. Quiet carries peace, she said. Atsa stepped forward again. Come, he said kindly. Sit with us for a short while. You are welcome as a guest. Cal hesitated. He wasn't used to being invited into circles of people he didn't know. But the openness in Atsa's voice carried sincerity. Nalina nodded encouragingly. You are safe here. Cal slid off the horse and followed them into a shaded area where blankets were laid out and baskets of fresh food rested beneath the trees. The group formed a gentle circle, inviting him into their space. Their movements were peaceful, their voices low and warm as they greeted him kindly. For the first time in a long while, Cal felt himself relax among others. There was no pressure to talk, no expectation of loud stories or hurried conversation. They spoke softly, laughed gently, and honored silence as much as they honored speech. Nalina sat near Atsa, her expression serene. She looked more at home than Cal had ever seen her. The way the others glanced at her showed deep respect. Respect born not of fear, but of admiration and love. It was then Cal finally understood something important. Nalina was not simply part of this group, she played a meaningful role among them. Someone special. Someone treasured. He didn't know yet how important she truly was, but he felt the truth settling in his heart, like a quiet sunrise. Nalina belonged to a world full of purpose, and somehow, his path had crossed hers at the moment she needed it most. The soft afternoon light filtered gently through the tall trees as Cal sat among Nalina's people. The quiet gathering felt calm and warm, filled with simple conversation and peaceful smiles. Atsa offered Cal fresh fruit and warm bread, and the gesture felt sincere. Cal accepted politely, feeling both welcome and slightly overwhelmed. He was not a man used to being part of a group, especially one as close and respectful as this. He listened as the people around him spoke in gentle tones. Even when they laughed, their laughter was soft, as if they honored the peaceful land around them. The entire moment made Cal feel as though he had stepped into a world that moved slower and carried greater meaning than the busy towns he had passed through over the years. Nalina sat between two women who clearly cared for her deeply. They touched her arm, brushed dust from her dress, and spoke with joyful relief. Their eyes sparkled with warmth each time they looked at her. It was clear she had been missed, truly missed, and Cal felt glad he had helped her return to a place where she was cherished. Atsa eventually rose and invited Cal to walk with him a short distance from the group. Cal hesitated at first, unsure why the tall, wise man wished to speak privately, but Nalina gave him a small nod of reassurance. So Cal rose, dusted off his hands, and followed Atsa along a narrow path, shaded by tall oak trees. The air was cool under the canopy, carrying the scent of blooming wildflowers. Sunlight scattered across the ground in soft patterns. Atsa walked with steady, graceful steps. His presence was calm, but it carried depth like a quiet river, with strong currents beneath its surface. At last, Atsa stopped near a smooth boulder and turned to Cal with a thoughtful expression. You walked with Nalina during an important part of her journey, he said gently. For that, we offer gratitude. Cal shifted slightly, unsure how to respond. I didn't do much, he said. I only made sure she had company and safety on the road. Atsa smiled. Sometimes the simplest things are the greatest gifts, he said. Care, respect, patience. These are the things that protect the spirit, even when the body is safe. Cal lowered his gaze. No one had ever spoken of him in such a meaningful way. He had spent years drifting from place to place, saying little and keeping to himself. The idea that his quiet presence could matter to someone felt strange but comforting. May I ask something? Atsa said. Cal nodded slowly. What did you think when you first met Nalina at the trading post? Cal took a deep breath. I thought she was calm, he said honestly. Calmer than anyone else there. Everyone was confused and talking loudly, but she wasn't. She had a kind of peace around her. It made me feel like stepping forward and helping her was the right thing to do. Atsa nodded with understanding. Nalina carries a strong heart. It does not shake easily. She has always held grace, even in unfamiliar situations. Cal listened quietly. He felt curiosity rising inside him, but he wasn't sure how much he should ask. Still, he trusted Atsa's openness. There's something I don't fully understand, Cal said, choosing his words carefully. The people at the trading post didn't know who she was. They didn't treat her with the respect I see here. But when she returned to you, everyone greeted her like someone important. Someone special. Atsa's eyes softened. Nalina is special, he said. She is greatly loved here. Her presence carries wisdom, and her spirit brings balance. She holds a place of honor among us. Cal absorbed the words slowly. He had sensed Nalina's importance, but hearing Atsa say it so plainly gave everything a deeper meaning. I'm glad she came home safe, Cal said after a moment. I didn't know who she truly was, but I knew she deserved kindness. Atsa placed a gentle hand over his heart. And you gave her that kindness, he said warmly. Many people move through life without thinking of others. But you stepped forward, even when it was not expected. That speaks of your character. Cal felt heat rise in his chest, not embarrassment, but a kind of humble pride he rarely allowed himself to feel. Atsa's words meant more than he could express. They stood in comfortable silence for a few moments. The soft rustle of leaves filled the air, and the sunlight filtered down like golden threads. It was peaceful here, so peaceful Cal felt the tension he carried loosen, slowly and quietly. Finally, Atsa spoke again. Nalina has something she wishes to share with you. Let us return. They walked back toward the gathering. Nalina stood when she saw them approaching. Her eyes carried gentle warmth, and the soft smile on her lips made Cal feel strangely anchored, as if her presence created a calm place inside him he didn't know he needed. Atsa stepped aside, giving them space. Cal approached, unsure what she wanted to say, but trusting her completely. Nalina looked at him with steady eyes. I spoke of you to Atsa, she said. I told him how your kindness guided my steps when my path felt uncertain. Cal shook his head lightly. You weren't uncertain, he said. You always knew where you were going. I just followed the trail beside you, she smiled. Even a clear path can feel quiet without someone to walk it with, she said softly. You helped fill that quiet with peace. Cal didn't know what to say. Her words held sincerity that touched him deeply. Nalina continued. There are things you do not yet know about me, she said gently. But one truth matters most. Atsa is not only a leader among my people. He is also someone I share a life with. I walk beside him, and my place is here. Cal understood. He felt no sadness, only respect. Everything he had sensed about her importance now made perfect sense. She hadn't just been a traveler, she was someone who held a meaningful role among her people. Someone loved and cherished. I'm glad you found your way back, Cal said sincerely. You belong here. Nalina nodded softly. Yes, and you belong to the land that calls you forward. Your trail continues. Cal glanced toward the horizon. He had traveled alone for years, yet now something felt different. He felt stronger inside, as if helping Nalina had taught him something quiet but powerful. Atsa approached with a small bundle wrapped in soft cloth. He offered it to Cal with both hands. "For your journey," he said. Cal opened the cloth and found dried fruit, warm bread, and a necklace made from polished stones. Each stone was smooth and shaped with care, threaded together with woven cord. "It is for protection," Atsa explained. "A reminder that you walk with honor." Cal held the necklace gently. He felt humbled by the gift. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I won't forget this." Nalina stepped closer. Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried emotion. "Paths meet for a reason," she said. "Yours and mine met when we both needed understanding. Carry that understanding with you." Cal placed his hat over his heart in a small gesture of respect. "I won't forget you," he said, "or the lessons you shared." She gave a small, peaceful smile. "The land remembers everyone who walks with a good heart. You will always have a place here, even if your steps take you far away." Cal mounted his horse slowly. He looked down at Nalina and Atsa, standing together with quiet dignity, surrounded by the group that loved them. Cal felt no sadness, only gratitude. The world felt larger now, richer in ways he had never noticed before. As he turned the horse toward the trail, Nalina called out gently, "May your journey be guided by clear skies and a steady heart." Cal nodded, a soft warmth rising in his chest. "And may your days be filled with peace," he replied. With that, he nudged the horse forward. The sound of hooves echoed softly across the valley. He did not look back right away. Instead, he let the moment settle inside him, carried like a quiet fire glowing in his chest. When he finally glanced over his shoulder, he saw Nalina standing beside Atsa, watching him with calm eyes that held no sorrow, only gratitude and connection. Cal rode toward the horizon, the necklace resting against his chest, the land spreading wide before him. His journey continued, but something within him had changed. He had started as a quiet traveler with no direction beyond the next sunrise. Now he rode with a heart carrying new meaning, gentle strength, quiet wisdom, and a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can shape the path in ways one never expects. And though their trails had parted, Cal knew their stories would always share a place in the land's memory.